Uh, where am I? Hello, everyone, and welcome as we celebrate the release of Horrific Tales Volume 4, Eldritch Terror. I'm joined by some of the contributors who have helped to create our latest entry in the series. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to thank you all who have supported our podcast and publishing endeavour as we look forward to continuing this journey with you in the new year. Did Tony just break again?
Yeah,
The internet does not like us tonight.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks, for being a bit late, but the gods of the internet, we obviously didn't make the right sacrifices of newborns. Again, sorry. It's Christmas. We thought we'd give the unbaptized a break. Oh man. Well, here we are. Various folks have been like I said, having all sorts of technical difficulties. So we'll have people joining, people leaving, and all that kind of stuff. But here we are, Volume 4, made it. Our 7th book of the year, which I don't think is too bad for first year of a publishing company.
Wow. It's quite a feat.
That's that comes with its own problems and joys and all that stuff and stresses, but it's all about getting it done at the end of the day, just not giving up and getting the things out. So I'm really happy we got to this point. At one stage, as I was explaining, I had massive technical difficulties of my own, and I didn't think it was going to happen. I thought it was sunk in the water, just dead, but we got it done. But anyway, suppose first of all, obviously everyone knows you guys, but do you want to go anti-clockwise, give a quick introduction? Start with Eli and then move around.
Okay. Hi, I'm Eli Beals, frequent contributor now to the Horrorific Tales. I was featured in 2, 3, and 4 now, and I'm excited to read these stories when I get them.
Tony.
Hi, I'm Anthony M. Caro, and you can call me Tony Caro, and this is my 4th book, my 4th contribution, and I have my own stuff, Dreaded Invocations, my short story collection, and just all around horror writer, nonfiction writer, and contributor to the podcast.
And last but not least, Katie.
Hey, I'm Katie Marie. I am a horror writer and researcher, primarily looking at often unheard voices in horror, and this is my 2nd anthology that I have contributed to. I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, fantastic. We actually got, for this one, we got a bunch of new people, but they seem to be quite shy. or the internets don't like them. But I haven't tried to join. His computer just went wibble, so hopefully he can jump in. But yeah, definitely, it's great to have people returning. It gives me faith that I'm doing something right, because when you're doing this sort of thing, you're in your own head most of the time, and if you know what that's like, you're just constantly self-doubt, you're questioning yourself, you're critiquing yourself, and you're just the slightest little mistake, you make mountains out of molehills. I'm sure you're all familiar with that journey.
Tend to call it the mind goblin. Lives in the back of your head, says incredibly horrible things to you.
Yep, it's like, you'll never do this. Blah, 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 blah. So it does give me heart when folks like yourselves come back, and it's like, okay, well, I wasn't horrible the first time. Must have done something right. Keep cracking on. But yeah, this one, obviously, Eldritch Terror. We're looking at cosmic horror, Lovecraft, strange occurrences, other realms, the void, etc., etc. We'll just do the round robin until we get into free flow. But what was your sort of first experience of Eldritch sort of storytelling, cosmic horror? What was your sort of first experience of that type of storytelling, and how did you discover it? Go from Katie roundaways.
So I can't remember what my very first Lovecraftian style story was. My very first horror story was when my mum, at a very inappropriately young age, read Clive Barker to me. She read The Thief of Always to me when I was far too young, and I was obsessed ever since. But I actually can't pinpoint when I sort of fell in love with the cosmic horror stuff, but it's whenever it did take root, it took root hard. I can say that much.
I don't know what's. Hopefully, Ivan will get in. He's obviously annoyed a great old one. They're like, you will not be part of this stream. Right.
Yeah, I started my introduction to Lovecraft was with the Haunted Palace movie, Vincent Price movie, which played on syndicated TV, 70s, 80s, and Pickman's Model, not the story, but the adaptation on the TV show Night Gallery, which ran heavy in syndication, and I first heard his name with Reanimator because Reanimator received big promotional push in Philadelphia area, and then From Beyond. So, but that was more like an introduction to Stuart Gordon. I mean, those are they're not Lovecraftian in their act. Well, From Beyond is, but not Reanimator. And from there, I started reading the books, or rather, some of his works. And then I became a pulp fan. I'm a huge Robert E. Howard pulp fan, but I did read a little bit of Lovecraft when I was younger. I'm talking like I was 15, 16. I mean, I read more over the years, but him and August Derleth and all those other guys. So that was kind of my interest. So I came, like a lot of people, I came by way of TV and movies.
Oh, cool. Eli?
Yeah. I think the first time it kind of like inspired me to dig deeper, I watched In the Mouth of Madness with Sam Neill.
Yeah. The overacted extraordinaire himself.
And I was just mystified by that whole concept, and it just sort of like led me down a bunch of, just consuming other media that was similar to that. And then, yes, it led me to Lovecraft, Robert W. Chambers, August Derleth, I think, sort of tangentially. I don't think I've read anything of him. I've just read about him. But yeah, I just love the sort of like, I guess the opening line to Lovecraft is that the most powerful fear is, or the most powerful emotion is fear. The most powerful fear is of the unknown. And so that's just the basis of all of his work. Just trying to take a different angle, different snapshot of it, of the same unknown. Maybe just the edges of it, but not really the full thing, because it can't be described.
I think mine had to be Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Like that, there's just something eerie about like the original and then obviously the remake, but there's just something eerie about the whole premise of something coming from beyond, and you didn't know who your friends or your neighbors were. They weren't them anymore, and just slowly watching your world get eaten, even from within. It's not your world anymore, and there's almost like nothing you can do to stop it. And that concept is terrifying. I think if you've got a tangible enemy or something you can battle against, you can cope, you can find a way. But when it's not tangible and you don't know who friend or foe is, and you don't know what the motivations are, that really does it hits something in the back of my mind. It's the same with The Thing. When I watched it, that was that same concept of an alien entity. It had the technology in this case to come to the Earth, but why is it doing what it's doing, and what's its goal? And it's obviously a thinking sentient being, but being able to mimic your friends, you don't know 1 minute who's like that ending where McCready and Child still talk about. It's still one of them things that people theorize over, and it just shows that's great storytelling.
Gives you something to chew on.
Ivan, can you hear us, and can we hear you? Oh, we're so close. At least you're here. At least that's what we'll do. Is we'll do like puppetry, and we'll say nasty things and pretend Ivan said it all, and then he'll get in trouble and not us.
So mean.
Ivan, if you can't hear us, at least thanks for joining us, mate. And hopefully you can get sorted out, and then we'll figure it out as we go along. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting concept. Just something something that the human mind can't comprehend.
It's one of the things I think a lot of video games kind of fail at when they try and do Lovecraftian things. They will give like Cthulhu a health bar. And the minute you give Cthulhu a health bar, it's like, nah, stop it. I'm starting to understand how he works. Pack it in. Still Wakes the Deep is really, really good for how they handle like the Lovecraftian stuff. If you've not played it before, I would definitely recommend it. They don't give the entity a health bar.
No, that's good. The last sort of Lovecraftian style game was Real Gods of Hystera, and it was terrible. It was only on fetch quest things. Go fetch this, go fetch that, go fetch, and you're like, what are we doing? This is not what I signed up for.
They're slapping a public domain name onto their video games for sales purposes, I think, sometimes. So it's not really Lovecraft. It's just Lovecraft's name or something that they can use to market. When you're probably going to be more geared towards the mainstream rather than the niche. Sometimes you're trying to cast that wide net, so it becomes less Lovecraftian and more just generic with a hook to it that they're borrowing. So that's what, and that happens with all of it. That's what happened with the movies. I can't remember. I think it was the Unnameable. Unnameable was a Lovecraft adaptation. And it had like nothing to do with Lovecraft. It was like a monster movie, slasher movie type deal.
Good. What was that one? Underwater. That was god awful. Wooden plank herself, Kristen Stewart. Starts off with a Kristen Stewart monologue and supposed to be Lovecraftian. It was just really bad CGI.
God awful applies to like a lot of horror movies going like all the way back to like 1913.
Yes, I suppose that's true. But I don't know. There's a mix. It's like any story. It's the mood you're in when you're reading it. Are you susceptible? Are you prepared to like forgive? Like we talked about before it went live, is the intention of the creator. Does the creator actually want to entertain you? Or are they just doing it because they feel they have to? They're going through the motions. That's the worst. It's when you get that feeling of, I'm just going through the motions here.
Yeah, I think with Lovecraft, he was neurotic. So I think a lot of his issues, they just came through his writing. I think it was maybe cathartic, although I don't think he ever had any. I don't think he ever stopped being neurotic. I think he just stayed on that plane, and that's why I think makes his writing so, I wouldn't say paranoid because they're not conspiracy thrillers, but there's the attitude towards human beings, the human condition. They're kind of bleak in a lot of ways.
But we're shit. There is no utopia. We're arseholes. Given half a chance, we will be arseholes to each other. That's the human condition. I don't think it's wrong to acknowledge that.
Well, the elder gods are indifferent. They're just like, they don't care about. It's like they don't care about humanity, or it's almost like microcosmic to them. It's like bacteria. It's and people foolishly try to pull them in, and it never works out well for them. Some things are best left alone. Those are Lovecraftian themes.
Very much, but I always enjoy when you catch him in a moment of when he genuinely found something that he just didn't get, like cold air, when he was scared of air conditioners. That was great. I love that one. That's one of my favorites. Yeah. So, no, this is new technology. I don't get it. Therefore, it's got to be evil. It's got to be used by like guys who are dead, rotting in their apartments. Quick. Everyone get rid of your air conditioners.
I think both From Beyond the movie and the short story are great because you really should not. You should be leaving these things alone. You should not be going beyond. It's not going to work out well for you. You don't know what you're tapping into, and they're not very friendly.
No, but somebody always knows better because they have studied. And they have read the right rituals, so they're going to do it right this time. And that's half the fun of that journey.
They had to poke it with the right stick.
Yep.
That's assuming we can overcome our obsessions with things. I mean, most of his stories are about that sort of like obsession with Polaris, or just this, they fixate on this thing and they generate this entire reality. And from the reader, it leaves you in suspension of belief or not, because most of his work is anecdotal. So like, maybe this person's just hallucinating, maybe not. But
I actually got that from some of the stories. They were left open just enough that you're like, is it a psychotic episode, a breakdown, or is it something else? Or is it an excuse for what they're doing? That's
yeah.
and I
Yeah.
like that. I like that bit of ambiguity, because what I didn't want, once again, as you know, with these anthologies, I don't want rinse and repeat the same 10 stories, because that's
Yeah.
pointless.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a literary device, the unreliable narrator, kind of just a different spin on the way Edgar Allan Poe used to do it. I mean, your first person narrator is a kook. You can't really trust them, and you don't know if they're really, what they're seeing is what they're seeing, or is it partial? Are they you're in their head, and their head's processing all this, and they're they're not really all there. So that kind of makes them kind of really neat stories. That makes them kind of fun. And he was doing it really at a time. I don't want to say stuff was bland. I think in the pulp world, especially in the sci-fi horror realm, because pulp did sports fiction. He was writing at a time when you had fiction magazines that focused on basketball. Like literally, because you didn't have radio, you didn't have TV, so you had a lot more genres. So pulp was really broad, and his stuff, and a lot of the pulp writers, the horror fiction writers, the sci-fi writers, it really was innovative, really unique. So he took it into a strange direction. I mean, this was really not like anything else, and stuff that is like it was written by people who were fans of his. So he really trailblazed in that way.
But it all has to start somewhere. That's the thing. That's the thing I find frustrating about today. There's none of that. Everything is now rinse and repeat, remake, rehash, reboot. It's almost like creativity
Yeah.
stopped.
Yeah, they were doing that in the past.
Oh, I
Silent.
know
I
it's
mean,
never stopped. I'm no losing that, but it just seems to be worse now. It's just a complete malaise has gone over the whole creative industry, and I just, like I said, I find it frustrating. It's, oh, here's something that's established. Let's just tag on to it. Let's not branch out at all. And
We need to slap Disney.
oh god, the sooner that company burns to the ground, the happier I'll be. If I
It
could
always
see
makes
their,
me sad though, because every now and again they will put out something that's actually really good and is interesting, and then they'll either get scared of it and squash it,
oh,
or they'll just do remakes.
it's like the superhero movies. I mean, really, you're past the point of where we've seen this before over and over and over and over again, and the diminishing box offices tell you the audience is not just burned out, but bored.
I don't know, there's no excitement. That's one thing I'm trying to reignite again, just an excitement about storytelling again. Let's go back to basics. Let's not worry about the $200 million budget for blah, blah, blah and special effects. Let's go back to actually just using our minds, because I think people have forgotten that.
Well, the door's open now with Tubi and all that, with the indie films. It's just that you're not getting the old time. You're not getting what you used to get from the 50s all the way into the 80s, or the 90s rather, because it's streaming, and streaming is I don't mean the format. It's just the it's too social media oriented. It's not drawn from going to the movies, or going to the drive-in, or watching late night TV. It's from scrolling on your phone. So it's just comes off as low attention span, derivative stuff, and that kind of hurts it. Not that want to discourage any indie filmmaking. I just wish they get back to basics, make it nuanced or something like that.
Well, that's what I mean. The basics of storytelling, like books, reading. Too many people now don't read, and you can tell the just general. direction of, if you don't have a healthy imagination, I don't think it helps you in life. Even problem solving or dealing with things that are out of the ordinary. If you have a stunted imagination, you're limited. Just your own experience in the world. I don't
Well,
know.
it's like the basketball pulp magazines. Once radio came about, the sports fiction, except for boxing, because that fight scenes, that faded away real quick because the audience didn't have any. That was all they had. And when they had radio and then TV, those books were gone because their audience were people reading on their lunch break or or chilling when they got home. So that it's just a cycle that repeats. The people they read social media, and then that's replacing a lot of long form reading. I mean, they don't even read. It's like they don't even read if you publish an article a news article or anything, they read the headline. It's all bold and.
Oh, I see. See when I do the horrific news segment, the amount of people that comment on the headline alone, like, did you watch?
That's all they read.
Like the video's 3 minutes. You tell me you didn't have the attention span of 3 minutes to actually get the context of the video.
I got it. I read the headline. That's it. That's why you see. That's one of the reasons why you read. You'll see there's another little scam going on here. You'll read an article and it'll be like, man bites dog, and paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4 neither mention the man or the dog. You don't get into the 5th paragraph. That's because because for their advertising, they need to register you as landing there and stay in 3 seconds. So if they got right into it at the top, you'd bolt, and they lose their ad revenue. So bad writing, not bad writing as in the bad grammar or whatever, but you're off topic for the first 3-4 paragraphs.
Oh, I rip into those. Like when I do them, I have to do it in spurts. Like I'll do news articles, but then after about 3 weeks, I'm burnt out. Can't do any. I have to stop because I just get so angry and annoyed, especially entertainment media. I'm like, I can't do this anymore, and then I need to take a break before I think about starting them up again because it's like, nope, I'm out.
Yeah.
10 of those articles in a row, and you're like, nah, I give up in life.
Yeah. It's like I think with X, or when it was Twitter, it was completely headlines. It was not. Facebook, yeah, but X, Twitter was always just the headline was what they were promoting. It was you put a headline out there and it was spark engagement and talk about it, not even read it. Facebook, yeah, people would click through. How much they read on. It's up to them. But the other platform was always based around just not even reading her. It was about people, yap and commenting and all that, and they just needed the headline for it.
Yeah, I can't be bothered.
That has an effect. It has an effect, especially when you're reaching hundreds of millions of people.
So talking about actually storytelling, because it's just the way, we're trying to capture people that maybe aren't like that, because I can't see that being a life worth living. Being, a commentator on headlines and just going yap for the sake of it, I can't be bothered with that. Forums, etc., where people just arguing with each other over the silliest wee thing that doesn't mean anything at the end of the day.
I thought you were going to say being a writer was a life not worth living, which, is correct, but
I don't
say that.
No, I think it's like a curse. I think you have this thing and you just have to tell a story, and it just has to come out, and nothing else matters. Just have to get it out there. You've got this thing in the back of your head and it's been mulling over, and that's it. It just has to come out. But actually, talking about, give me a segue. How do you go about? So, what was your sort of mindset when you're thinking of cosmic horror story? How do you go about crafting your tale for it? What's the sort of thought process before you started putting your individual stories together? Eli, do you want to jump in first?
Oh, it's a pretty common theme in a lot of my stories, and usually it's all the impetus for that is just trying to get a peek at something just like unfathomably massive or incomprehensible, and just sort of like packaging it up in a scenario or a scene where people are interacting with it somehow. And maybe not all the details are fleshed out. I don't really know what the thing looks like personally, but it's more fun that way when you don't know and you just kind of see the effects of it. It's like the wind, right? You can't see it, but you can see what it does, and sometimes it can do a lot.
But with your story, it was actually quite innocent. There's a big rock in my garden, I want rid of it.
Hmm.
It's messing up the bush.
Yeah,
And then it just descended into, time travel chaos.
yeah, or just time. So what I imagined was like this being that was here and it was stuck, and it's kind of like I wanted to generate some kind of empathy for this thing that's maybe it doesn't want to be here, kind of like I don't know. I guess that the word would be a shoggoth. In the Lovecraftian universe, they're like servants to the old ones. And everywhere they go, they kind of manipulate their environments around them. And I thought, what if they also had a way with time? Like, how would they genetically evolve things quicker to the effects that they desired? And so, like, maybe they just have this field around them that manipulates time in a weird way. And that was kind of my idea, and I was just kind of envisioning this thing trapped in like almost like a liquid, like it's drowning in the earth and it's trying to get out. But its concept of time is so much different than ours.
Mm.
So it thinks it's flailing around in the water, but we just see it static.
No, fair enough. That's because that once again that bucked the trend of somebody investigating and I will open the portals and I will command this thing.
Right. That's a little. I don't know. It's like what if you? I had other ideas. Like, what if you like walked outside and you saw these ants on the ground, and you kind of notice they're moving in a weird pattern, and then suddenly they spell your name.
That's
So-
sort of Twilight Zone stuff, isn't it? That's like a Twilight Zone.
And you're like, are they trying to like contact me? Are they trying to communicate with me? And like, what do you do? As this, to them, you're this like omnipotent being, and they're aware of you, and that's a little unsettling.
No, I like the way your story went. Like I said, it was completely innocent. There's
Yeah.
no search or anything. It just happened to be that, caught in this event.
Yeah, just
And obviously,
two
not
ordinary
spoilers,
people.
folks. Buy the book. Buy the
Yeah.
book.
Yeah, I mean that was like one of 3 stories that I was kind of working on at the same time, and that one just kind of felt better. The other ones they're still unfinished, and I was banging my head against the wall with some of those, trying to pull a story out of those ones. The ideas are cool, but like I just couldn't negotiate the narrative to make it feel right.
Yeah, it might come back. That's one thing. You put it aside, and who knows? A year later,
Yeah,
you get
that's
it.
what I do. I have folders full of slush.
Katie, yours was a mystery to unravel. Somebody got a job. Seemed like quite innocent enough, but there's like a whole conspiracy.
Mm.
What was your sort of thinking behind that?
So it sort of popped up because I had the idea of basically what if there was a lake that was only a lake sometimes. So during like daylight hours, effectively, it is a dry, barren basin, effectively. But sometimes at night, when you can't see anything, you can hear the water and you can hear ships on the water. And sometimes you can hear screaming. And it was just sort of like that idea. Then it kind of sort of spiraled, and it was like, well, what if somebody had been, like you say, employed in a random job to like look at this lighthouse? How would you react and behave if your job was to be the lighthouse keeper for a lake that wasn't a lake? And what kind of lake needs a blooming lighthouse at the best of times? And it just all sort of spiraled from there. But that's how a lot of my my stuff tends to start with like one strange little idea, and very much like Eli, I have so many piles of slush where I've had a really random idea and I just can't craft a narrative around it. I could craft like a scene around it, or even a couple of scenes, but I can't get it to go further than there. But this was one that it took a long time, but yeah, it did eventually get like a complete beginning, middle, and end, which I understand are essential for stories.
The help.
Thought so.
Help you sort of go along the journey. Tony,
I,
yours could
I,
have easily been in your latest anthology, part of the Globe series. I just saw it connected to that universe.
yeah, yeah, it was, you know, with that one, when you do sci-fi, I remember somebody once saying that sci-fi is really about the present. It's just that it's more of a fantasy of trying to get it, getting across what's going on today, but using the future as a kind of just to create a world that's more to drive like a fantasy element. And I'm a big cyberpunk fan. I'm old school cyberpunk and horror. Horror sci-fi mashups have been around for forever. I mean, I was a little kid. I remember seeing "It the Terror from Beyond Space," which I think was the first. I think that was the first real horror sci-fi. Cross genring, because everything else was like sci-fi was sci-fi. It kind of had its sci-fi elements, horror had its horror elements, and that was kind of the very first one. And cyberpunk, I thought that mashes a lot of genres up in action, mystery, detective fiction, hard-boiled crime, a lot of crime. Like crime really is a lot in there. And the idea of doing a Lovecraftian cyberpunk story. It's not, I mean, it's been done before, but that really intrigued me because I was kind of like, did I want to set it in the past, But then I said to myself, well, I don't know that much about 1920. So let me jump it forward. But one of the things that really fueled it, and this was, this was that was in 2002. I was in Hollywood as a convention, a cult movies convention, the magazine, the old great magazine that's unfortunately not in publication anymore. We were at the dinner for their convention, and they said, well, we got a very special guest. And I was like, okay, cool. And who comes in? A very old Ray Bradbury. And I was like, wow, I mean, there's the most iconic, sci-fi writer of all time. And I recorded it, and I don't know where it is, but it's in store. I mean, it's in storage, and he said something that just, yeah, it's been what, 20 odd years, 25, 23 years. And it stuck with me. And he mentioned about this disagreeable person that he didn't like. And he said he was writing a story, and he was writing about a Tyrannosaurus Rex. So he infused this person into it, not like, talking Tyrannosaurus Rex. It was just your standard, dinosaur. But everything that it did, in his head, it was this other person that was driving it. And I thought that was really, really wild. So that really stuck with me. And so when I was writing this, I thought that you could infuse, I thought that I could infuse a little bit of, social commentary about just, I guess, too much obsession with social media, too much obsession with the low attention span, too much attention with the scrolling and the headline readings that we were talking about, and a bit about, rave culture, and not so much rave culture of the 90s, but how we reboot things today from the past that don't really have anything to do with it. It just goes through a marketing lens. So I thought that was just a just a unique way to comment on some of the things going on today by jumping into the future and then bringing the elder gods into it. And the elder gods are just not taken seriously by the people in the story because they're just along for the ride, for the party scene and all that stuff. And you have the disconnect between the audience and the influencer, and whether the message, in this case, you have somebody giving you a very serious message it's more of like a haha attitude towards it, and it kind of bites them in the end, literally.
Mm-hmm. That was a friend of mine on the channel reviewed the book last night, and he had a major problem with your story because he couldn't tie up together craft beer and raves. And I think he
Mm,
missed the point of hipsters and people, like you said, just doing things for the sake of doing it. And these are people that don't understand rave culture because they weren't there. So they're
yeah,
looking at it from an academic perspective. And then they've
yeah.
looked up raves, they've looked up craft beer, and they went, "Oh, we'll do them together." But they're going through the motions and don't, knock in it. But the worst thing, obviously, is disrespecting one of the great old ones, which is what played out. I
Hmm.
got it. You know what I mean? I got the story. That's why I enjoyed it. It's their stupidity, not being there, just doing a thing because this looks cool. Let's do this, and none of them are really they're not invested. And that can be once again about the attention of creators. There's people that create stuff and that don't care about actually telling a story or entertaining people. They're just doing it because they feel like they have to, or this is a trending topic. I will do this. This is, a hip thing to be part of. I'll jump on that bandwagon. And those sort of people infuriate me, and that's what I saw in your
Yeah,
story. Is it the ravers, that it was those type of people.
yeah. It's not. They're not real ravers. They're resurrect. It's marketing. They're resurrecting something from the past, sanitizing it, and repackaging it. And that's what you see a lot with a lot of like you said, with hipsters and things like that. So I guess it was more of a commentary critique on marketing and mass media culture. Um, something that goes on today that went on in the past will go on in the future. So yeah, and then you're in a situation where it's actually a lot more serious than people are not taking something seriously that they should be taking seriously, and yeah, it when they find out, it's too late.
Right? Can I finally say it? Ivan, welcome.
Hey,
Yes,
sorry.
yes, yes, he's here. Yay.
We've got you.
Did you find enough newborns to put onto the sacrificial table to satisfy the internet gods?
It
No,
took
we
20 of them,
colluded.
but finally I got it working.
Oh
Uh,
man, I
he's
was feeling
he
bad for
he
you there.
should
I'm like,
he showed up just in time for me to say goodbye.
oh right, that's right. You have to get to work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Like, thanks very much, mate, for turning up. I appreciate you giving a bit of your time. I know uh, it's a bad time of year to be trying to do anything, but like I said, I wanted to get this out before the end of the year. I didn't want to leave it too long. All right,
it's a
but
bad time to have a job.
yeah, well, I booked my annual leave in June, and they were still trying to argue with me about taking it. I'm like,
Yeah.
nope, I booked the last year off. I don't care. Doing it. But
All right, guys.
thanks, mate, and obviously we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah,
Good to have you as always.
anytime, every time.
Cheers, buddy.
Bye.
And is this like the ritual circle then? There must be 4. Is that the way it's working? That's the way we've aligned the stars for this podcast to happen.
Makes a nice square.
Ivan, do you want to introduce yourself to everyone?
I'm Ivan K. Conway, and I wrote Hallowed Ground for this awesome anthology, and that's all I can think of. Unless you have further questions, I'm sorry, I'm really new at this, obviously.
That's all right. I'm not saying I know what I'm doing. Like, we just cuff every time we go live. We just cuff it. So don't worry about being professional or anything. We don't do that here. We just turn up and wing it. It's all fun. Nah, basically, just obviously while you're trying to join, we're just basically talking about the concept of cosmic horror, what it is, what sort of intrigues you about it. But and obviously we're going through like the concept behind your story. So yeah, Hollow Ground, that was an interesting one. Obviously featuring twins and like a whole family legacy. And I'll be honest, I was not expecting the way this story went, and I really liked it. So obviously,
good.
without spoilers, do you want to talk us through the thought process, how the story sort of came together, and what you were sort of thinking when you wrote it?
Well, I was actually tinkering with this story for quite a while. It was meant to be an origin story for a villain that I was planning on including in future stories, but while I was writing it, took a direction that I didn't foresee either. So I really liked how it turned out, though.
Oh, fantastic! And obviously, you bring the sort of cult element into it, and this thing's been going on for a while. And yeah, I love the little centipede things. Obviously, like that was an interesting little twist.
Yeah, it's just the weirdest, grossest looking things that I could think of.
Bit of body horror thrown in there as well. Yeah, cool. I suppose one thing, just sort of a bit of the background of dealing with publishers, etc. I just know this is the first year of Horrific publishing. But Horrific Tales Volume 1 came out around about this time last year, I think. It was meant to come out in January, but managed to get out like a week early. How did you come? Obviously, not even through the podcast, but how did you find Horrific publishing? How did it pop up, or did you become aware of it?
Oh, it
Nice.
was podcast guests for me.
I stumbled across a submission call on Instagram.
Well, Instagram, right?
I
because it's never.
remember, because I remember I found you quite a while ago before you started putting the anthologies out.
You were part of the because both yourself and Tony were part of the narrated fiction segment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is sort of what this is the next step on from. That was the.
I think I connected with you through podcast guests. I think, and because I was pushing my first book, and I was looking for media promotion, and I think that's how we hooked up. And then then I became a contributor. I started doing panels and the Horrific Tales audio series. Yeah, that's where it started.
It's always interesting to know where people find it, because that's I'm still scratching my head 5 years on with the whole thing. But the people come on board. I'm like, where'd you find me, sort of thing. No. Oh, did he break? Oh, no, you're still there.
Who, me?
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you froze there for a sec.
Oh, I thought no. Yeah, I've been having some technical difficulties with this. I apologize.
Happens to all of us.
But yeah, I think then I got on your mailing list, and then I started following you, because after I did the first show, then started doing more of them.
Oh, cool. Like I said, it's just always interesting. I take it you've all submitted to various publishers before. Yep. What is it you look for? Because this is obviously something I've heard so many horror stories, about publishers and the way they behave, and that's one thing in the back of my mind is not to be that. When you go to look for a publisher, what is it you're looking for, if that makes sense, when you're thinking about submitting a story?
So generally when I go looking for places to submit to, I will look for themed calls to start with, to try and find somewhere that my story is going to fit well. I will try to read something that they've put out before and see just basic quality things, like if it's well formatted, if it's come out and it looks like a book I would pick up in a bookshop. That's usually a good sign. The ease at which you can submit to, things like that, and as long as they've not popped up in one of like the little social media groups that exist out there where they're like writer beware kind of thing, then I'll tend to risk it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, fiction and nonfiction are two different things for me. Because I've been, I've worked as a professional writer now. I mean, that was my primary job for 20 years. I didn't have another job for 20 years, except, little side gigs here and there. But with nonfiction, I think that's just wide open for anybody and everybody, because there's such a constant demand for nonfiction on so many different markets. I've always had a really good acceptance rate with nonfiction. It's just, I just always found that the demand for content or material was always huge. Fiction's a little different. It's hard you got to find a match. And you could write a really good story, and people just, the publisher doesn't want it. It's just not a match for their company, their magazine, their website, or this or that. And with fiction, sometimes you have publishers, they have their insight on what's the right way to write fiction, which can make it even harder, even though you think it's a good match, or you think that they're going to dig it, but they don't dig it. Also with fiction, no matter who you submit to, they get overwhelmed. They really get overwhelmed with submissions. I remember years ago, Writer's Digest magazine used to put out a reference book called the writer's market, and they used to, and within their stats, they would list how many submissions they would get per issue, each magazine. And some of these guys are getting 500, 1,000 or 2,000 submissions, and they actually removed that because a lot of people, they wouldn't even submit it because they'd see how much, how swamped these magazines were. I mean, you're talking a magazine when they publish 4 times a year, and they publish 8 stories, and they're getting, thousands of submissions. So it's hard. It's really challenging to find a venue for fiction. That's why a lot of people do self-publishing for fiction. And for myself, I like transgressive fiction. And transgressive fiction is even a harder sell, because the only, it's like you look at a book like Less Than Zero or Bright Lights, Big City, or God forbid, American Psycho. It's like, it's love it or hate it. And the people who hate it really hate it, because transgressive fiction is designed to be polarizing. And that makes my fiction harder to put out. I mean, harder to sell, to a buyer. But when I put it out by myself, and I market it by myself, it generally does extremely well for an indie. Not that I'm selling 1 million copies, but for an indie, it does pretty good. But I also have a marketing background too, so I kind of bypass the publishing, like the print publishing, or digital, because now it's all digital. And I kind of focus more on nonfiction or promoting myself through media appearances, and that's kind of where I find my audience. But it's for me, it was always very hard to move nonfiction to anybody. So it's hard to find the right match, and you're dealing with such a huge volume of other material being submitted. So that's always a challenge. It's so hard to say, well, do X, Y, and Z. And, I can say that I can, nonfiction. Yeah. I mean,
are there ever any red flags? I suppose that's what I'm trying to get at. When you're looking for a publisher, if you've got fiction, what is it you're looking for in terms of, this could be a good home for me?
Well,
or what makes you go, maybe not?
If it's a cozy mystery, and you write hard-boiled crime, they're not going to accept it. It's different audience. So I wouldn't say that's a red flag, but I think what they do.
No, I meant just in terms of integrity of the publisher, or they think, don't go there. It's going to be drama.
Turnaround time's a big one for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they put things like restrictions on there saying they don't accept simultaneous submissions, so once you submit to them, you can't submit anywhere else. But also they want your story for 18 months. You don't expect to hear from them for a really long time, but they also don't want you to submit anywhere else. I don't know if this is true, because I'm not a publisher, so I don't know. But if they turn around and do stuff like that, I'm like, you don't understand what it's like to be a writer and someone who is submitting work and trying to make a bit of a living off of it. That's a red flag of mine. But again, that is a personal thing.
No, but this is what I want to hear about. That's what I'm saying. It's about, it comes from both sides. What the publisher wants, what the author wants. I don't think people really talk about this. So that's why I'm just trying to sort of open the window a bit, and the sort of the process in the background, what goes through somebody's mind when you see a publisher. Like I said, I'm brand new to this. I'm still figuring out as I go along. It's only been a year, and I'm not claiming to be anything fantastic. And it's just interesting as well to have the conversation, because there could be anybody out there thinking about doing this, and it's good to get maybe a bit of insight about the the good and the bad of the whole process, because, like I said, there's some terrible stories out there, of people taking their work, not paying them, and doing this and doing that, and using like Amazon algorithms to stop them. Stop them publishing anywhere else because they've somehow managed to lock it in, and I mean, I've heard all these sort of things, so I'm just
Touch wood,
interested
that's
in having
never
a
happened.
conversation. Like I said, it's from a distance, but when I started this, I read up all this. I mean, I went through writing groups. I read up because I wanted to make sure I didn't fall into those traps.
Mm.
I mean, paranoid about that. So that's what I mean. I've heard so many things that I'm just interested in everybody's personal experience, or what's maybe what you're looking out for, what you worry about.
Well, I don't want to dismiss people not getting paid and things like that, but from a publisher perspective, I think a lot of people want to become publishers. They want to do literary magazines or books or this because they have a passion for it and they love it, and they want to be involved, and they want to bring other people's work to the to the industry, to the market. But I think what happens is they under budget, and they don't have enough money to keep their publishing business afloat. And the easiest person to screw over a lot of times is the writer with the royalties or this or that, because they become illiquid. They can't pay anybody, and they didn't expect this, and they start getting the emails and the messages and the phone calls. So then they start ghosting people, and that's really, really a mess, because you might have signed a contract like where the publisher has the rights for 5 years or 6 years or exclusive rights, and you can't get a hold of them, and then they breach the contract because they didn't pay. That's a mess. So there's no way around that. So when you're dealing with a small press publisher, you're going to expect that it's possible that your rights may be tied up, and that you may not get paid because they just may go out of business, and they're not Random House where they have the infrastructure and the staff to deal with this. Not the Random House. If Random House went out of business, they would go into bankruptcy. So you wouldn't lose contact with them. So that's the risk when you deal with small press publishers.
Yeah. Actually, part of the reason of doing this is transparency as well, if that makes sense. Because you can't really hide if you're sick yourself on camera. You can't pretend it wasn't me. Do you know what I mean? That's sort of one of the things I sort of use is obviously on the back of the podcast is you can get to meet me. Also, you get to meet the authors. So there's the whole AI question, which we'll maybe talk about. But you actually get to meet the authors too. And to me, that's vitally important rather than just names.
Mm.
What about yourself, Ivan? Obviously, you're new to, as your first submission. And so you're new to HORRORific publishing and podcast. What was your sort of thought process about deliberating whether or not to submit? Were there concerns? Was there anything that has been said or done that alleviated it? Because obviously you submitted and you're here. So was there anything said or done that alleviated those?
Well, I looked over the guidelines for your submission call, and I was like, oh, hallowed ground would be perfect for this. I gotta try to submit it. So that was basically as much thought process as went into it. I mean, I see a submission call, look over the guidelines, think, can I write a story that fits into this? And can I get it done by the guidelines, by the deadlines being set? And if it's good, then off to the races. And that was basically it for me.
So have you ever encountered any sort of negative press or feedback about publishers or interactions? Obviously not name names, etc. But I mean, has that ever been a concern that your story's going to get taken? You're going to get basically screwed over?
I've heard horror stories here and there, but knock on wood, I've never encountered anything like that personally.
Okay. Like I said, I just think it's a conversation that's worth having, because there are bad faith actors out there. And I don't like to see people get screwed over. That's the thing with me, you know, just personally. I don't see what that achieves at the end of the day. You know,
It's almost always that they ran out of money, and that's where they run into problems. The other is rights issues, and I have no idea what the financial health of any any publishing house is, but I can read the rights. I mean the terms of it, and you know they're going to ask for exclusivity, but if it's a ridiculous amount of time, or or God forbid they own the copyright, you know, like you've sold your copyright to them. Wow, that means it's gone. It's become Steve Ditko with Spider-Man, you know, like so many people who created so many comic book characters where you know the term was you know they didn't own the rights, and they never made a nickel off of the billions of dollars or millions of dollars that some of that stuff made. But you know at the time, you know, it didn't have value. But that's a big cautionary tale. I mean, anything like, to me, I mean, I can't tell other people what to do, but for me, I'm not handing over my copyright. Just here, this is yours. You own it. You can do whatever you want with it. You own it. I transferred my copyright to you forever. It can't be reversed. That to me is that no. That I can't do.
because actually talk about the contracts. You know, I got examples of like loads of different ones and went through them with Dale and some of the guys in the background, you know, before I even started this. That was one of the things I wanted to nail before I even put the first submission out was, right, what's a good contract for both of us? Because one thing I've noticed, even with the narrative fiction segment, are serial submitters. Somebody who's maybe written one story and they're touting it everywhere. And their whole thing is, how long have you got it for to like give it to somewhere else and put it in, you know, it's going to end up everywhere. And some of the conversations we have had as well, especially if it goes in digital format, is if you've got a serial submitter and their one story is appearing like 5 or 6 or 7 times, that causes all sorts of copyright issues with like KDP, for example, that you just start getting flagged for, you know, oh my God, what's the word?
You mean exclusivity?
Plagiarism. Shit, I couldn't think of that word.
Plagiarism.
Oh my God, you know, you get done for plagiarizing a story because some bad faith actor submitted it about 5 times as different anthologies or magazines. And then the minute you publish, it gets pinged by the algorithm. Next thing you're getting your account banned because some shithead who's, you know, playing games. So it works both ways. So I was conscious of that as well. And obviously, like, this has been a year, but next year, like the same books, I want to take out the conventions and roads to get physical copies printed and sell that way, you know, as the next sort of step in this journey. And the last thing I want to be is hamstrung with, oh, yeah, you only get that for 5 minutes and then it's mine again. And you have to, you know, do all that sort of nonsense, which I've heard of as well from the other side of the fence. So I think it's all down to, you know, how do you recognize bad faith actors? How do you counteract them and like try to, because this should be a positive thing, you know, we're coming together, we're taking ideas out of the world, our concept, and make it into physical format. You know, to me, that's a great thing.
I don't think you can recognize it unless it's an obvious, you know, scammeroonie where, you know, they're charging you money, like, oh, you know, give us money and we'll do this for you. We'll publish your work or this or that, you know, which, you know, is, you know, that happens sometimes. A lot of it's just experience. After a while, you know, if you've been screwed or you've been cheated on a deal, it's terrible. But you know, if you're involved in publishing or entertainment or this or that, you're going to run into bad faith actors. It's the nature of the business because it's a con man business. I mean, it's you got a lot of people who stretch the truth or spin tales or lie. You know, they might, you know, they're, like I said, again, going back, you know, they could be bleeding money, and they know it's they're hoping that the next thing they put out is going to generate enough funds to pay their debts, and it's not going to. I'm not talking about anybody in particular. This is just amalgamation of things that happen.
You know, but that's it takes 3 years for a business to become solvent if it's
Yeah,
consistently going.
three
So,
3 years is
you
3
know,
years is
you
very
know, so
generous.
I know I'm not expecting anything like for at least 3 years, not even thinking about it. So that's something you have to plan for. So
It's a
I don't
very
know.
slim profit margin.
Yeah.
It's a very, very slim profit margin. And if you want to get involved in publishing, like, it's, you got marketing budget, and then you also, your funds are being like, if I want to publish a book, and let's say I'm, like I was a copywriter, and you can only do one thing at a time. So not only not only could like if I want to put out, if I which not that I'm going to, but if I wanted to put out a book, and I'm doing that, I'm taking my time away from either copywriting or whatever, personal training. Maybe I have a personal trainer, maybe I deliver food. So your income is going down on top of it, adding to insolvency. So those are and what you're doing has a slim profit margin. So that's what I try to tell people from that side of the coin, because I was very lucky. I mean I didn't just work as a writer. I was on the other side. I was on the other side of the desk. I was in screenplay development. I worked for magazines. I worked in the marketing department in magazines. Like when I joke about the writer's life, I wouldn't want to do anything else, but my God, it's not an easy. It's not. It's not easy. There are some issues there that you may deal with that you don't expect. And can you pick out a bad actor? By the time it becomes public, they've screwed so many people that it's public. So you have to just expect that some things are just not going to go your way.
Oh yeah, that's right. But like I said, the whole point of these conversations as well is to sort of shine a light on it, because there's people, are maybe terrified about getting into this at all, because they go to the social media groups, they hear all the horror stories, and they're just like, oh, I can never do that. Who do you trust? Blah blah blah. So I think it's important to have the conversation and just shine a light on it, and warts and all, what's involved.
How long have they been around? If they've been around 20 years and there's nothing negative out there about a particular magazine or a particular publisher, you're probably on good footing. But if they've been around a long time, they're also getting a lot of submissions, and they also probably have I don't want to say house writers, because that would that's something that's a little different business model. A house writer basically means that they've already pre-selected their writers for all their work, as opposed to freelancing or open submissions. Like I say, if they're a bad actor, they'll eventually get exposed, because someone's not going to not going to make fuss. Yeah, exactly. But if they've been around a long time and they've got a good track record, that's usually who you want to deal with. But if they've been around a long time, they've got a good track record, they already got regular writers working for them. So now that 10 submissions are going to go down to 5, because, even a mediocre, if you put out, if I were a publisher and I'm on volume 15 and I have a writer who's selling my books, he does 14 really good stories, and the 15th one is not so good, I am probably still going to publish it, because
that's the thing.
I don't want him jumping.
No, I go by the rule. I like with each of these is, yes, it's great to have like yourself and Katie, I consider regular contributors. We've built a rapport, but I don't want to just be stuck in the box. Relying on the same people. I want to bring new people in, but it's about it. That's the thing I'm struggling with, is what's the right balance of, I want to bring at least 2 new writers in every anthology. If that makes sense, because it's that, have the consistency, but also keep it fresh as well. That's something else that plays in the back of my mind when I'm doing this. It's a strange thing that the actual stories themselves aren't always the consideration when you're doing this. It's funny the things that go through the back of your mind when you're going through this.
Hey, if a writer's a mediocre writer, but they got a massive social media following that can move books, mediocre is going to start looking really good to a lot of publishers.
That's the thing. I think if they notice with me, I never asked for a person's social media page until afterwards.
Yeah.
Until we're actually signing the contract. I don't want to get I don't want to fall in that trap either, because that's, cloud chasing. I'm not into that. You know what I mean? It's about the
Depends.
story
Really
first.
sorry to jump in.
Oh.
I'm really, really sorry. I need to shoot.
Oh, right, Kitty.
Sorry,
No, well, thanks very much.
no
As I
trouble.
say, it's great to have you on, and
Marvelous. Really pleased to be happy. Really pleased to be happy. Of
course.
course, I'm really pleased to be happy. It's late.
yeah, it's good that time.
Delighted to be part of the anthology.
No, Kitty, thank you as
It was
always,
lovely to
and
meet everyone.
thanks for coming
And
back.
I'll
You
speak to you
too.
all soon.
Okay, Kitty, thank you.
Bye.
All the best.
Yeah,
Then
it,
or
it,
three.
Sorry,
it
where
just
was I?
goes.
Yeah, I don't cloud chase. That's one thing I've purposely made a point of avoiding. Is I will not look at a social media profile until it's after it's done.
Yeah, that with the major publishers, or even the minor publishers or whomever, they look at that social media following because it will reduce their advertising budget. And when you have slim marketing, excuse me, a slim profit margin, marketing and advertising promotion cuts into it. So by not say pawning off, but sharing those responsibilities with the writer adds to their solvency, if that makes any sense.
Oh no, I appreciate the principle. That's what I'm saying. I do appreciate it. And in
Mhm.
a perfect world, yeah, everybody would have a massive social media following and they just share the book everywhere. But I also want to maintain a bit of integrity, because that's one thing I'll talk. As you know, if through the podcast, that's one thing I talk about is integrity. A lot.
Mhm.
And I want to maintain that in my operation. There's no point me slagging off Hollywood or big name writers for being arseholes and doing this and doing that and talking
Mhm.
about their integrity if I'm not prepared to step up myself. So that's a personal thing with me. Is I want people to know when they come to horrific publishing that I'm a good faith actor, that I'm interested in the stories first and foremost, do the fit.
Yeah.
I'm not getting rinse and repeat 10 of the same story. Just you're not getting that. It's a good mix. Sometimes a bit off the wall, but I want that too, because that could catch someone that weren't expecting it. I'm sort of thinking that as well.
Well, what your situation is a little different because you have that massive podcast audience. So it's not the same as a regular publishing house. So you already have like a built-in media promotion. So it doesn't necessarily. I shouldn't say it doesn't impact you as much, because anybody that you work with who has a big social media following is going to be helpful. But you're not relying on it because you already have your own.
But it's also I don't want the podcast to turn into an infomercial.
Hmm.
So I've got to balance that out as well. So I don't want the podcast getting taken over by the publishing, because it ruins the integrity of the podcast, and people that maybe come to watch the podcast aren't here for this necessarily. This is just one aspect of it. So it's always, like I said, you're always thinking of these things. The back of your mind, like the back of my head, when I'm doing this is just spinning. Like this year, the back of my head is just going with all the factors to take into play. It's been stressful, but it's also been really eye-opening to just embark on this journey as well as a publisher for the first time. It's I'm glad I'm doing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, you have attraction marketing working for you, so you don't have to just be like, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, buy the book, because you got horrific, the show. So audience follows. It's horrific, and people enjoy it.
That's
and then
where I
when the
messed
book
up with the cover for the first book, because I was so focused on tying the two together. That's where when I looked at the first cover, I'm like, that's a bit shit. Let's get that sorted, because I realized that I was trying to tie the two together, and then that's why I changed the cover for HORRORific Tales Volume 1, because I looked at him and went, what are you doing, you idiot? That looks crap. Get that sorted now. And then I had to rethink, but you don't
Yeah,
realize until you've done the thing and put it out. You look at it afterwards, you're like,
Yeah, it's like, don't judge the book by its cover. I mean, don't judge the content or the quality of the writing, but you can judge the marketing potential of the cover, and then that's you need a strong cover. Actually, is critical to move a book, unless you're so famous that they just put your name and the name and the title.
Only a few more thousand subscribers to go. We'll get there. Hey.
Hold on. You guys are frozen on me, and I'm going to have to refresh because
Oh.
you guys, I can't. There's no
The
movement.
internet gods hate us tonight. Obviously, we performed the wrong ritual.
And I'm starting to shake because of the air conditioner, so I got to lower it. So this would be yes. I want to reload this real quick. Hold on, I'll be right back.
No dramas. Well, Ivan, seeing you, I got a chance to actually talk to you because with a few stutter and starts there, but no, glad you made it anyway because there's nothing worse than the technology going wrong and everything else, and it's frustrating as well, especially when you're prepared to come on. Is this a big step? Is this something? Do you do a lot of interviews or live streams?
This is the first live stream I've ever been on.
Oh, right. Fair play to you. There's a lot of people will not take that step. So like I said, fair dues for actually coming on because there's people who just refuse. They think live, they think, it's going to be this or that or the other. No, it's good. Do you find that a challenge? I know a lot of writers don't like the podcasting side of things, or find that a difficult hurdle to get over. Has that been a challenge for you?
Well, I missed it because I had to reboot.
Sorry, I was just taking a chance to talk to you. I haven't seen it as his first time on the podcast, and is his first live stream. So I'm just trying to ascertain: was there a hurdle you had to jump over mentally, or did you not think about it, or how's that work? Going from okay, I'm writing, I'm creating stories, I'm putting it out there to now I've got to go and talk about it.
Yeah, I'm still a little nervous, but you've done a great job of creating a laid back atmosphere that really helps settle my nerves somewhat.
I'm glad. It's we're not here to get people. Do you know what I mean? That's not the thing about.
I appreciate that.
Because what does that achieve?
Doesn't help. Yeah, doesn't encourage guests going on to your show. That's for sure.
No,
or at least I imagine.
I never understood that with some people like to try to bring people on just to put them down, or I'm the hard interviewer or whatever. I don't understand that mindset. What's the point then? You may as well just monologue.
Yeah, you're using the guest as a foil. It's a way to do. I mean, if you want to build viewers, and it works, that's what they're going to do. It's not something I would do, but it's it can. Controversy sells, and train wreck interviews can go viral. So it's what can you do? The way around that is if you're good, if you have a lot of experience in front of the microphone, in front of a camera, you can steer the interview in your direction. You can take over a show if you're an overbearing guest. You can literally take it away from the host, and that comes with experience. And some people, quite honestly, they're not as smart as they think they are. So when they start poking, their finger in your chest, when you poke back, and poke back a little harder.
I've had one or two. Believe it or not, I've actually had a couple of people like that over the years of doing this that come in, they're trying to be this, that, and the other. And you're just like, I let them talk, first of all, because all they're doing is showing their arse. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
someone is like that. You let them, you don't, you just let them say what they're saying, and you're just like, really? That's what you believe, and you just let them dig their own hole.
Yeah, I mean, you want to positive. When you go in front of the media, you want to, you want to be, even if you want to be controversial, you don't want, like, you hear the term, in wrestling, go away heat. You have heat, which is like for the bad guy. You want your audience to dislike your bad guy so that they'll pay to see him get beat up. Go away heat just means it's just such a character that you just go away. You just want to get off my screen. I have no interest in paying to see you, listen to you. You know, just go away. And I think, you know, sometimes that happens. Harlan Ellison was was and always will be one of my favorite authors. But oh my God, was he a disaster? I mean, he would do interviews. Oh my God, you have to see how terrible some of his interviews were. I mean, he was just an awful guest at times. One time with the Tomorrow Show, he was just being an obnoxious guest, but he was funny obnoxious, and you know, the host, you know, let him run with it, and I'm sure he got an earful after the show. But he was also on other shows where he just killed the show. He just killed it. He just went off topic or just inappropriate humor or just, you could in the audience, you could hear the audience gasp. I can't remember what show it was. It was Mike Douglas. I think it was the Mike Douglas show. He killed the audience, right?
That's the thing. This podcast lives in appropriate humor and tangents, so that doesn't faze anybody. It's what is it? It's the people that find, if they've got like 10 talking points, like a list, and they've nothing else to say and can't have a conversation. That's the ones I struggle with, because I'm not here to do sound bites. I'm here just to have a chat. You know, it's because I think that lets the audience know this is, anybody who's interested in this book, you kind of want to know what the person's thinking behind the story and a wee bit of premise without spoilers, but maybe just have this conversation. It's like, oh, right, that's where you're coming from. You know, your story, for example, I know somebody didn't get it. I did, and I sort of knew where it was coming from, and they were being very literal with the premise behind it. You know, this wouldn't happen at a rave. I'm like, that's the point. They don't know. They're just conceptually thinking about a rave. They don't know what
it's not a rave.
Yeah,
it's not a real. It's not a
facsimile
real
of a
rave.
You know what I mean?
Exactly, it's facsimile.
Yeah,
it's rinse. It's carbon copy, rinse, repeat by people who don't understand it. They're marketing people,
like entertainment people today, who don't understand entertainment.
They're taking something from that they don't care about it. They just see the marketing potential in it, and they take little bits and pieces of it. And I mean, I'm not talking about my story. I'm talking about, you know, that's the way marketing people, some of them will work, and people who were there or that's the one thing that really I bite my tongue on the I was there. But I was there during the Grindhouse era. I was there during the indies, you know, the VHS days. And, you know, and you bite your tongue. Some people don't. They get really, you know, furious and frustrated. I'm not stumbling because I'm nervous. I'm stumbling because it's cold in this room. It's really cold.
Did you do the up switch instead of the down?
I go up, and then what you're going to see me is you're going to see me doing this, because it's going to start getting really hot in here soon, because it's either really hot or really cold. But it's frustrating when you see people who were not there, weren't even born 20 years after something died, writing about it like they were there. And that's not, you know, not that, you know, I'm going to condemn them. Like I said, I just shake my head to myself, and you know, I'm not, you know, whatever. So that bleeds into marketing in a way, because what happens is you have people who weren't there trying to describe what was there, and it's like, that's not it. That's not real. That's not what happened, you know. And that was one of the things I wanted to poke my finger at, you know, because you know, the story is a contemptuous story in a way, because it talks about you know, it's very, like I said, I was a huge fan, am a huge fan of transgressive fiction, and transgressive fiction likes to deconstruct or mock society, and it's about outsiders. And people either get it or they don't get it, or they like it and they don't like, or they don't like it. And it's very hard to have a middle ground. I don't like I don't really answer critics, because I go by sales figures. I could have the greatest book in the world. If it doesn't sell,
doesn't matter.
Warner Brothers ain't going to call me. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, what can I say? I don't know how to articulate it, but what happens is it's a social critique of a lot of times of people, like I said, people who don't get it and weren't there, trying to take something and reinvent it for money.
Mm-hmm.
You
That's
know?
not even for the feeling behind it, which created the thing in the first place. Like pop punk, I think is a perfect example of that.
What was that?
That was. Do you remember the pop punk era? Some
Yeah,
41,
yeah.
Blink 182, and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
The
yeah,
most
yeah,
contrived, sanitized, horrible.
yeah.
Just
Um,
that to me always stuck me of, and I wasn't even a punk fan, but I got the scene, I understood it because it was,
it's
you know,
like
I grew up in the late 70s, early 80s, so like, yeah, I knew actual
well,
punks, and yeah, that whole thing was just like nauseating. I remember that at the time.
yeah, yeah.
But Lovecraft
It's
went through a bit of this as well. Do you remember that? What was it, about 3-4 years ago? Everyone was jumping on the Lovecraft bandwagon, but also hating Lovecraft as well.
Hmm.
Do you remember that whole thing? Oh, we hate him, but we're going to use his work. Oh, we hate him, but
He's a
we're gonna
bigot.
mention him every chance we get.
Hmm.
That was so contrived. It was like just we just stop now, please. You are annoying me.
I can't tell somebody how to write, publish, or do what they want to do. You know what I'm saying? And it's sometimes like it's. I don't like Lovecraft, but I'm going to use Lovecraft. I can do Lovecraft better than Lovecraft. It's like, well, go for it. And if your books sell and your audience digs you, that's all you have to answer to, because they're the ones keeping you afloat. You know what I'm saying? Not the people who are not your customers. Now, I if I read something and I don't like it as a consumer, I'm not somebody who goes on Amazon and gives bad reviews. I go on, if I really like something, I give a good review. But I don't. I'm.
You just
It's just
tend,
not.
you just tend
It's
to go,
not the way. It's not
yeah,
the way I roll.
not buying that again. I'm not, I mean, you close the book and you put it away and you don't finish it, or that's it. That's
Yeah, I absolutely will not review a book I didn't finish.
no,
Because
because there's no point. Yeah.
that's just wrong. Because you know what? It's rare that something that starts out bad gets good in the last act. But I wouldn't write a review of something I didn't finish. Unless I did the review and said this was so bad I didn't finish it, and I mentioned I went I went to the point I read to, at least so people can understand that why put it in context. But like I said, positive vibes are better. I'm not saying that there should never be a critic who only does good reviews, but it's
There's a difference between constructive criticism and just trolling.
well, trolling makes money too.
Yeah, but that, once again, how do you want to make your money? Prostitution makes money. But I don't want to be wearing lippy down back alleys, gobbling like 5 hours a day. You know what I mean? There's other ways I'd rather make my money or not make as much. You know what I mean? I've no doubt. I put a bit of mascara and lippy on, I could maybe make £5 a night. Who knows? Put a wig on, it could happen. But I don't necessarily want to. And I might not feel too good about myself afterwards. Just saying.
Different people roll differently. Exactly. Different people are going to roll differently. I mean,
you know what I mean? There's people like that love the troll, they love the other, and that's what I say. That's the whole point of this as well. Is just we see you out there, trolls. We see you, but I'm just going to laugh at you. You know what I mean? Constructive criticism is something completely different. That's something you think about and you go, oh, right, yeah, good point. Oh, shit, right. How did I miss that? But that's always useful to keep yourself in check, that you don't build a big ivory tower and stay up there and then watch everything crumble beneath you, because that's a road to failure.
There's no nice way to say it, so I'm just going to say it. I've been too successful for too long to care.
Fair enough. That's
sounds like a good place to be.
Mm-hmm.
What about yourself, Ivan? Have you come across that, like being out and out trolled or received constructive criticism? You've thought, oh, right, that's actually a valid point.
Thankfully, I haven't been trolled as of yet. During college, I did go through some writing classes, did some workshops on my writing, and like I'd get one of my stories back after the class reviewed it, and there's like red markings all over every page, and like, ugh. And then I'd need to wait a few days before I looked over the criticisms, and oftentimes I was like, okay, yeah, I see where I messed up there, and oh yeah, that's a good point there, and stuff like that. So I usually need a few days for the sting of failure to wear off, but once it does, I really appreciate constructive criticism.
Not everybody's going to like your work. Not everybody's going to get your work, and you can't expect everybody to like your work. It's just not going to happen. Yeah, like I said, if you write hard-boiled, I'm using hard-boiled crime just because it's just illustrative. If you write hard-boiled, nihilistic crime stories, a person who likes cozy mysteries reads cozy mysteries because they don't like hard boiled. It offends them. They don't want to read nihilism. They want happy endings. They don't want dark characters. They want characters who are hopeful. So that person, if your work lands on their desk, they're not going to like it. They're not your audience. You can't appeal to everybody. You have to find your audience, and you cannot restrict your work from who you don't want to sell it to because it's in the public square. So somebody who doesn't like your work is going to get your work, or doesn't get your work is going to get it, and they're going to say, I don't like it, I didn't get it. You can't. I mean,
that's part of the that's part of the course. Even podcasting, that's the same. There's people watching and they'll be like, "Oh my god, who the hell's that?" They'll flick off. That's it. Other people get you. That's
a Christmas Carol. A Christmas Carol. I mean, it gets bad reviews. Some people just don't. I mean, some of the reasons they don't like it. I think one criticism was they thought the ghosts needed to be a little scarier. Well, I don't think so. I think that Dickens hit the right tone with them. That's why we're still,
it's a classic for a reason.
Yeah, and they're still making movies out of it. Johnny Depp's going to be up, but I can't say to somebody.
I surprisingly liked the Jim Carrey version. I wasn't expecting to. I surprised myself by enjoying that.
The digitally animated one.
The animated one, yeah, where he played.
When I was a kid, you had two movies. One was, I can't remember, it was 1930 something, a Christmas Carol. Anyway, the other one was Scrooge, and I think that was made in the 30s or 40s, and it would appear in the TV Guide, and it would have 3 stars, 3 out of 4 stars. And I can't remember what it was, but it was the Alastair Sim one that finally found its way to TV. And it got 4 stars. And I remember it was on public broadcasting, and they said, this is the version you want to see. And I watched it, and that is, if you have not seen the Alastair Sim version of A Christmas Carol, wow, go watch it, because that is a great, 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 great film. That's, in my opinion, the best. Absolutely.
No, it'll always be the Muppets Christmas Carol. I'm sorry, I have to disagree with there. Nothing's going to beat that. That's a...
Not for me.
Do not disrespect the Gonzo. Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, like I said, just interesting. Like I said, riffing and just talking about the various things in the background, especially with reviews, and putting yourself out there. It's not easy, and yeah, you're going to get people that look at it.
You can't control the reviews. You can't control somebody's opinion. You can only control your output and how you manage your business. So if you want to, if you want to hang and cry about somebody not liking your work, quit. You're in the wrong business, to quote Charles Bronson, Mr. Majestic. That's where that comes from.
No, that's a fair one, because you can take constructive criticism and think about, oh, well, maybe I could tweak this, tweak that. But if you're led by the nose, then it's not your content anymore. It's not your creation. And that's always the danger.
There are people out there who build their audience by using movies, TV, film reviews as a foil for a comedy routine or a very negative comedy routine. It's a very successful format. It's never going to go away. And if your stuff ends up on a show like that, what are you going to do?
Here,
Nothing.
I got noticed. The worst thing's not getting anything. The worst thing's apathy. You know, that's the
Oh, yeah, that's the worst.
That's the worst thing. Yeah, I think it's just apathy of you just disappear in the wind, never to be heard from again, or not even get attraction.
Yeah.
If somebody's reacting to what you've created, well, you've
They're
done something.
reading
You know what I mean? You've evoked something out of them. So I would never despair.
Apathy and indifference basically means nobody's paying attention to you. So you know that you don't want. I mean, like I don't want to I don't want to name anybody's names, but there are people that I know that got publicity from negative publicity, and their books sold. You know, it's just because the name was out there. You know, like people buy the book. You know, anytime you get your name out there, you know, people are gonna give it a shot. But I can't. Nobody can. You know, it's see, they want praise. A lot of people want praise and value. Oh God, Art of Dramatic Writing, a book that came out years ago, and I don't want to name the author because I'll mispronounce his name. I can't remember it. I can't remember how to pronounce it. But he said, I read this years ago. He said that creative people look for essentially they look for the pat on the back. You know, they want to be acknowledged for their work. You know, they want to be praised for their work. Can't control it.
No.
And they'll get 100 good reviews, and they'll get one bad review, and they'll cry about the bad review for 100 years. You know, I mean, again, you can't force somebody to like your work. It's just you can't do it. You know, and a lot of times it has.
Sorry, Evan.
I don't think it'd be satisfying if you could, like, say, mind control everyone to adore your book. It'd make you question your skills. Or do you love my book because it's actually good, or is it because I'm working my mojo on you or whatever?
I don't want to say I wanted to soften my work, but I've also realized that if you're like, I'm very 70s or very 1970s influenced, you can't make a 70s movie today, because in the 70s it was very downbeat endings. Like even movies that were lighthearted, like Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, which is a chase film. You know, it has a really downbeat ending, and it's a PG rated comedy, and it has an ending that is like the most downbeat ending you could imagine. Sometimes I because that's my influence, I play around with that with some of my stories, but I know that I'm going to be boxed in because that type of stuff is niche. It's not mainstream appeal, and I never was chasing mainstream appeal. You know, it just I don't have the advertising budget to do it anyway, so why bother? I'd rather have my little niche.
Yeah, at least people appreciate you for what you do, and that's it. Just continue plugging on and growing. I suppose the important thing is anyone that's watching this maybe hear these horror stories or like bad reviews, like, yeah, don't let it worry you. And if you really feel like you want to create, do it. You know, that's the worst thing to do is live a life of regret and not try anything.
If you get a bad review, so did Stephen King. Everybody gets a bad review. Don't get hung up on bad reviews. You know, it's just you're wasting energy. Right? Yeah. You're wasting energy.
That's like, even when this is done, I'm already thinking next project. That's sort of the forward momentum. That's even with the videos. It's like, okay, what's like 2 streams tomorrow? It's like, okay, next stream. The way back in your mind's always right. What's next?
Now the other half, the other side of that is like if you're doing something and everybody's trashing it, like your Rotten Tomato score is 0, and you're saying, well, they don't get me. It's like, yeah, there's a reason why. Everybody's panning you. You know what I'm saying? So that's a little different.
Mm-hmm. But most people, like some of my own work, 5-star reviews, 1-star reviews. You know what I mean? A whole mix. So that's I would expect that. If everybody was giving 5-star reviews, I'd be like, what's going on here? It's all my friends, real reviews. If everyone's getting 1-star reviews, it's like, who did I upset? Who started the hate campaign? Do you know what I mean? It's that sort of thing. Or was it really terrible? It's when you get a mix and you sort of just take it for what it is. It's okay. Is it the same bait of a story that's thrown most people okay, what was I thinking there? Why did that not work? It's that's a bit of an internal reflection, isn't it? At the end of the day, that's up to yourself to.
With indie books or well, with a lot of indie projects, it's just mismatched audiences that are the reason why. Like you'll see a lot of 1-star reviews for things on Amazon. It's a mismatched audience a lot of times. It's not even a bearing on the writer's work. It wasn't your audience, and yeah, it's like, again, like fantasy, like dark fantasy. A lot of dark fantasy is not that dark. It's kind of it's edge. It's
It's
maybe a
hard.
little edgy.
It's hard to do. I've started a dark fantasy series and I wanted to take it over the edge, and I realized that it was actually when you pull dark fantasy into horror, you actually strip away the fantasy part.
Mm.
It's you actually feel one part of it getting lost by going into the other, and it's a tricky thing.
And that's why some people will not like a book, because is it in the middle dark? Is it too dark? Is it not dark enough? Like somebody wants dark fantasy. They might want something, like I said, nihilistic. Another person may want a traditional happy ending with maybe slight edginess, because maybe they get triggered if something's too dark. It's just too much for them or too intense. I don't write dark fantasy. I'm using it as an example because it's criticism I hear about dark fantasy. It's fantasy, but how dark? This too much, too little, in the middle. If it's in the middle, it's not. Then it's blah blah blah. I didn't like it because it didn't go either way. So that's why you're going to get 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. That's one of the reasons why that happens. Publishers, they look at sales, unless they're doing prestige work. But prestige work is sales. It's like, oh, look at me, I got this guy. He's got 5-star, 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 5-star. His books aren't moving, but he's winning awards, and they recycle that into their marketing campaign. Or we're a big publishing house. They they'll say, well, I'm not going to sell a lot of books, but Netflix going to come knock, and I'll make my money that way because they want But that's I think that's the publishing sales end of it.
Yeah, that's
a lot of writers don't see that side of it because they weren't on that side of the desk.
No, that's one thing I want to do is actually, like I said, as a publisher, is have the conversation with writers about it. And open the eyes that, like I said, just doing this, spitballing, things come up. Let's talk about it. I can now come, and the longer I do this, the more I see, I'll be able to give more informed answers. And the way I see it, if this helps the creative process, if this helps create an understanding and remove any, if a writer's thinking now, okay, this is what the publisher has to think about, and helps them up their game. I understand where the writer's coming from. It's all about trying to make the best product possible and show everybody in the best light. Both the publishing house and the writers, the individual writers. That's what this is all about at the end of the day. It is a collective effort. And yeah, it's just having conversations, I guess. And as we move along, it's getting people that maybe see us might want to come on board because of the openness of it. This might put people off because they don't want to have these conversations, or they want to, stay in their bubble. That's fair enough too. It might do both things, put the wrong people off who aren't going to be a good fit from getting involved. Because one of the expectations I have, and I've probably put out, is if you're going to be involved with the publishing, you have to come on the podcast. It's almost expected because that's the two are tied together. And if you're not prepared to do that, then why are you getting involved with this particular publisher?
Yeah, you got to be the right.
This is a caveat. It's not a written in contract thing, but it's a caveat. And I can understand people not being able to
help out. So that's what I want. Well, I wanted to help out a little bit. So that's partially why I'm here.
No, well, I appreciate you coming aboard, Ivan. And I know you were having massive difficulties there, and I was feeling bad for you, and I'm glad you were able to make it. That's what it's about. I understand. But say you're like appearing every anthology, but then you won't come on any of the talks. Then I start getting a bit, what's going on here? It can't just be nerves. There's something else going on.
Well, it's like anything else. You have to experience and self-examination helps you get better. So it's also, you have to kind of know what your limitations are. So if you're not new, excuse me, if you are new to speaking in front of a camera or microphone, you don't want to run out there for 90 minutes. Maybe you keep your appearance short. Maybe you can handle 5, 10 minutes. You do 10 minutes, you get smooth with 10 minutes, then you do 20. And you do 20. If you can do 20, you can do an hour. It's just experience. But if you don't do it at all, then you're not going to get any experience. And in this landscape, you have to hit, because if you're talking about being a writer, you need exposure. And in the early stage, you're not going to have, you're not signing with a publishing house that's going to prep you for this or control you. Not control you, but control your image. You wouldn't be like, if I were with Random House, you would not be dealing with me directly. You'd be dealing with my manager. You'd be dealing with my publicity people, my PR people, and they would also have me on a leash, because they'd be running through you and say, don't ask him this. They'd be coming to me. Don't you say that. You know what I'm saying? So when you watch people like on TV and all that, they got a lot of experience. They're very polished, and they're not doing it by themselves. If you can't speak, maybe you shouldn't, because it may hurt you. It may hurt it could hurt your brand, or you could look bad in front of the camera, which I don't think would hurt your sales. I personally don't think it would have even. I don't think it would damage you. But if you're nervous about it, keep your appearances brief. If you can only do a 10 or 15 minute interview, do a 10 or 15 minute interview. You'll be able to build it from there. That's not me. Again, it's not me as a writer speaking. That's me as not that I ever worked as a business manager, but that's kind of business manager advice.
Yeah, what I like about this format, actually. Sorry, just answering a quick email. I know we'll be wrapping up soon. Let's see if I can get my mom trying to join. What I like about this format is, with the panel, is people can dip in and out. Obviously I do that. Like, I keep the standard questions short, and then it sort of goes into free form. So that gives, say you're not experienced with this, you can kind of sit back a bit, but there's no expectation on you. If I need to, I can talk myself. I can just blab on. That's just the type of me. I just think it's important that you're at least prepared to try, and that's, like I said, one of the caveats with this is at least give it a go. No one's going to humiliate you on, like, I don't see the point in that. And I always say to people as well, watch the previous streams to see how it goes. There's none of that here.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they worry about a disastrous interview, or they worry about a train wreck interview that's going to really hurt them. Unless you do something really outrageous, it's probably not going to be a train wreck. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to be that bad. Stumbling, losing your train of thought.
I do that. I'm the host, and I do that all the time.
Yeah, that's because it's not pre-recorded. Yeah. It's not pre-recorded, so you're going to get the raw stuff. Like a lot of, if you pre-recorded podcasts, the flubs are edited out. If something's not right, they change it in the before it goes live. Before it goes out. If you're doing live, you're going to get flubs, especially if you're doing long form. Long form it also depends on the host, how the host steers the show. If the host is able to steer you in the direction they want to steer you, but the host can't force you to talk. Like if you just if you can't talk, you can only do
go
one or
talk
two
for
words.
10 minutes now on blah blah blah. Right? Yeah. Do it. That's, what does that achieve?
Because you see the interview, where the host is interviewing themselves. It's like they'll speak for like 5 minutes to hope to get something out, and the response will be because the person.
I've been there, and it's like, oh my god.
But they're not bad. They're not bad.
I don't say that as I can't. That's on me. I say that is on me. So like those, I found with this podcast, those interviews are very rare. It's 1 in a million sort of thing. I think that if you're not, you're just trying to get a conversation. Forget all that stuff. This is just a mechanism. you know,
I tell them, don't pay attention to the camera.
mhm.
Because if you start thinking about the camera, don't pay attention to the audience. Because now you're going to get nervous. You start second guessing, and then you start stammering. And then you start trying, or God forbid, you try to pre-write what you're going to say, or pre-plan what you say. Like you crack a joke, it falls flat. Okay, whatever. You move on. Nobody's going to remember it. It's, and you can rehabilitate yourself unless you're constantly cracking bad jokes, or you're constantly stumbling, or you're really egregious. You know what I'm saying? Where you're really like, if I came on this show and decided to talk about sports, and I kept going back to sports because I lost money. Yeah, because I lost money. I put all this money on DraftKings. I lost it, so now I'm going to complain on the show about DraftKings. And DraftKings, blah 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 blah. That's a terrible. I mean, that's bad. But
You nearly lost me at basketball 3 times. You mentioned basketball 3 times. The third time's like, huh? No, does not compute.
yeah. It's you got to remember you got to stay on top. You got to stay focused, or else you'll wreck the interview. And you're defeating the purpose because you're trying to promote yourself. You don't want to chase your audience away.
No, that's I don't think people that come on here anyway and watch, they get the idea of what we're trying to do here. And that's what it's saying to anybody that's wanting to get involved with the publishing side of things. Don't be afraid of this. Is not a gotcha. This is not you're a performance. It's just a chance to let people get to know there's actual people behind the creations. Especially today, but so much stuff is generated, and fluffed, that I think it's good that you get to see people involved, and talk about what their ideas were.
I mean, you might have bullet points you want to get across, but you can't go do a live interview with a bullet point list that you want to do A, B, 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 C, because the host may throw you off. They might give you a follow-up question, and you're not prepared for the follow-up question because you're so locked into your the points you want to get across. So you kind of, again, you got to be conversational, because this is a long-form conversational interview. It's not an interrogation. So, and you're not going to be interrogated because it's not investigative journalism.
Yes.
It's but like I said, some people, it's not their thing. They don't want to do it. That's fine. Maybe they're better off on a podcast that's audio. Maybe if you remove the camera, they may shine. You put a camera in front of them, they don't shine. It's just,
that's something that I guess the person has to discover for themselves. But like I said, my thing with this is I'd expect people to at least try. That's it. That's the caveat. Is the publishing house is linked to the podcast because the Horrific Tales segment was in Rated Fiction. Still is. It's one of them ones that resurface will get a few submissions, then it'll sort of die down again. It'll resurface, like everything here. So,
well, do you is it where you want them to promote themselves and then promote the book? That's what a publisher is going to want, but you want them to do it effectively. So if they're not able to do it, it's probably best not to. It's best to leave those jobs maybe to somebody else who can. You don't want to force somebody because it's just or pressure. It's that's where like I said, some people they have their skills in one area, it just may not translate to something else. But if the skills are lacking because of not because lack of trying, but not trying, you know what I'm saying? And then
I just find people surprise themselves. I suppose why I say it is because there's people getting their own heads in their own way. And that, like writing a story, for example, I can never do that, blah, blah, and put all these roadblocks. I find if you help someone remove those roadblocks, you don't know where they're going to end up. And once they get over that first hurdle, now it could not be for them, and they'll try once and never again. Like the Horrific Tales segment, the Rated Fiction, there's people who've maybe written one story, one out there, and never revisited it again. That's it. They're done. They've done their thing. They've got it out of their system. Never see it again, and they never try again. That's they're happy. Fair enough. There's other people, authors, multiple books go on. There's people that'll appear in the segment once, never hear from them again. There's people that become co-hosts. There's people start their own podcasts that maybe haven't before. I've just got the bug. You know, that you never know unless you try.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing.
Yeah.
You just don't. I'd rather somebody at
Is it-
least try once and discover it's not for them than never
Yeah.
try and always
Mhm.
wonder.
Yeah. And it's a good forum to do it because it's not, again, it's not a high pressure forum. It's a
Yeah.
conversational forum, you know,
Pretty,
and
pretty chill.
but the damn camera is always going to, you know, it can be overbearing if you're not used to it. You know, I mean, I'm just used to cameras. I've been around them for, you know, how old am I? I'm not going to say, but I've been around cameras and microphones for 30 plus years. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So, you know, I just been more behind the scenes a lot. You know, like when I worked in TV and radio. Well, I mean, radio. No, Scott, I forgot. I had a radio show for 2 years. I forgot about it. I forgot I had a radio show. Anyhow, yeah, that was a while ago. But my first time with that stuff, I was as a production assistant, say the producer, you know, doing the interview and, you know, lavalier the guest, and, you know, I kind of got to not eavesdrop. I shouldn't say eavesdrop, you know, because I was part of the production. But, you know, you're around people conducting interviews. So that's kind of how I learned to do interviews, because I was around polished professionals. And I remember I used to do transcriptions. I mean, oh my God, you know, being a host with a bad guest. Imagine having a guest that rambles for 3 hours, and I'm the guy, you know, because it's pre-digital. I got to sit there with a typing transcribing 3 hours of rambling lunacy. You know, it's like, well, you know, I think if I was in front of a camera, I don't think I would go on this tangent or that tangent. If I got anything out of that, it was, wow, stay focused, you know. But, you know, of course you're going to ramble, you know, because
that's conversations. That's what happens.
Yeah.
You just got
Sometimes
to just get back. But all right, I suppose we have rambled on for nearly 2 hours again. Suppose last question: what's next down the pipeline? What have you got coming up next? I haven't.
I have a few more short stories I'd like to submit to various anthologies. I have one horror collection I want to publish in the next 2 years. And those are the most immediate projects that I can think of.
Oh, cool. Tony?
I started working a new book, and I also have my little fun little audiobook podcast, Comic Book Ruminations. And here's how weird things are. If we did this interview last week or 15 days ago, I would tell you what I have down the pipeline would be completely different, because sometimes in the last 7 days, I don't promote them very much, but I have Facebook pages for you know, horror, for comic books and this and that, and a year 20 views, 15 views a day, like 5, 0. Had days where I had 0 views. Trial and error, and you know, this last week the viewership exploded. So that's kind of where I'm going to be putting my efforts in not just say posting pictures. Oh, hi, you know, I mean, like the Haunted Palace. Oh yeah, I saw the Haunted Palace, blah blah, good movie. I'm talking like you know, I'm going to be doing more audio fiction. Like I'm going to start doing serialized audio fiction through the social media and through you know, the podcast platforms, and nonfiction, short form, long form. So that's kind of what I think I want to flex on, because you know, I put it to you this way: if it's taking off, run with it. I'm not going to stop. So those book projects, forget about it. You know, put them on the back burner. You know, because again, it's like, remember, you got publishing, marketing, publishing, and producing. So, you know, little bit. It's different. It's different than writing, and you know, but publishing is marketing. It's a wing of the marketing world. It's if you're a writer and you want to get involved in the publishing industry, a lot of writers become editors. Editors and writers are very interconnected. Publishers are connected with the marketing and the promotions people. So that's the big difference. But and when something starts getting hot, and you're sitting on the producer's chair, you're sitting in the publisher's chair, you're sitting in the executive chair, you're going to go with what's hot. It would be crazy to pull back if you're getting momentum, and you never know what's going to happen.
No, I was
'Cause
saying
if
this
you
is a juggling match between various segments and that. And see something,
Mhm.
something obviously you do a few more of those, and then it dies down a bit.
Mhm.
So you look at the next bit, and it's you're
Yeah.
constantly spinning plates.
So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing more of that, because it just seems that it gives me a second life, because I liked writing nonfiction. I liked writing movie reviews, book reviews, and this and that. But I couldn't find I mean, I could get this stuff published, but I wasn't getting a big audience. And then finally, just I get a breakthrough, and then you just run with it. And that's the advice I give a lot of people. Go with what works.
No, that's fair enough. Well, guys, thanks very much for coming on, and thanks for obviously taking part in our latest anthology. Out now, folks. Pick it up all over the place, all good bookshops, and maybe some bad ones as well. But we'll obviously be carrying on. Just need to say, until next time, keep up to date with the channel, do the tidy clicky things, and remember to keep it creepy, keep it horrific.